Hello and welcome to another art house movie review. This time I'm reviewing the documentary Namjoon Paik, Moon is the Oldest TV, directed by Amanda Kim. So this is a documentary about the video artist Namjoon Paik. And around the hour mark, I wasn't sure that I was fully engaging with it. I know Namjoon Paik's work quite well and I have a lot of respect for him, so I was looking forward to this documentary. But initially, it wasn't fully engaging me. I must say, though, that by the end of the 2 hours, I would say that I very much enjoyed the documentary. But there is a problem that it's too long. This really didn't need to be more than 90 minutes, and it's 3 minutes short of 2 hours. Now, I heard the director say that the original cut was 4 hours, and I understand she had access to this amazing archive and that cutting it down to 90 minutes means leaving loads of good stuff out. But I think this documentary going longer than 90 minutes definitely took something away from it, and it could have been edited down. I think the problem comes in the first half because the second half was really engaging and passed very quickly. So Namjoon Paik is generally considered to be the first video artist. And you could say that video art is still evolving as a medium. So he was really ahead of his time. And what he did was highly original and innovative. I think looking at his work now, several decades later, there is a general problem, I think, that a lot of his work doesn't have the same impact today that it would have done when it was made. I don't think it's aged that well. That said, some of his work still is excellent, and we see some of it in the documentary. The TV Buddha, for example, is one of his most well-known pieces and is a really great piece of work. The archival footage is really interesting and we learn a lot about his process and his personality. And one of the things I really appreciated seeing was his commitment to avant-garde art and his challenge to the gallery and art institution. Despite the fact that he remained poor for many years, he was really true to himself, and I really enjoyed seeing this. There's some fantastic footage of him with other artists, particularly John Cage, who I also have a lot of respect for, and it was so interesting to see these two collaborating together. Overall, I think the documentary gives an okay overview of his work, but I have the feeling that the director is as interested in his influence on popular culture as she is in his actual artwork. So, for example, there's quite a lot of information about how he foresaw the internet and the information superhighway and even YouTube. It is true that he said every artist will have his own channel, and there's no doubt that he addressed these interesting issues in his work and was probably the first to use some of these terms. I did like to see his emphasis on video being a democratic medium, because that is definitely true. However, I do wonder if the documentary is more interested in presenting him as the inventor of kind of social media and modern video techniques rather than an innovative artist making really interesting work. The documentary also does give an interesting perspective on culture in South Korea. When he went back after more than 30 years in 1984, he was worried that he might be arrested because he wasn't sure whether he was going to be too challenging for what he understood still to be a kind of closed cultural system. In fact, he was greeted as a hero. But it's interesting because it does show where South Korea was culturally in the post-war period, that he even thought this might be possible. And it shows that maybe he was quite a big part of it changing. The documentary doesn't make this connection, but it did make me think how important Namjoon Paik might be in having opened the way for Korean new wave cinema, because we do have some great Korean cinema these days, and so culturally Korea definitely has significantly opened up, and this did make me wonder about his role in that. He definitely was part of that. Apart from the length of the documentary, another problem that I had was that we had narration of text from Namjoon read by the actor Stephen Ewan. Now, in the documentary, there is plenty of footage of Namjoon speaking, And I just didn't feel like these narrated additions added anything. It really felt inferior to hearing him speak directly and seeing the clips of him engaging with other artists. I think there was less of this in the second half, and when it really got into the swing of telling his story, which is a story that's definitely worth telling. So I really felt the documentary was more effective when it wasn't using the narration. Nam June Paik, in my opinion, is a really interesting artist, and this is a good documentary about his work. Although it has its faults in terms of length and, for me, the narration, and it is all very conventional, which is perhaps at odds with Nam June's approach. I do think this is a documentary worth watching, particularly if you're interested in video art. I'm not really saying that the documentary should be avant-garde. In fact, if she tried to make the documentary a bit more unconventional, this might have made it worse. But the documentary did feel very conventional, and I did think of this a couple of times about how if he'd have made a documentary, it would not be like that. That said, this is Amanda Kim's directorial debut, and I think there's a lot that's good about this documentary. As I say, it's worth watching, especially if you have an interest in video art. Thanks for watching. See you next time.